Okay, perfect. We're in. Okay, we had a little bit of technical problems, but only 3 minutes gone by, so that's good. Okay, perfect. I'm Anna. But just to double check, can someone comment in the chat if you can hear me, if you can see me? I'll take a moment. I'll comment in the chat as well just to see if it's coming up. Okay, giving it a moment. Again, if you can hear me, if you can see me, please comment. Hello. Okay, great. Perfect. You can hear me, you can see me. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to wait just like maybe a minute or two just to allow a few more people to arrive, but then we'll go straight into it. So, welcome to this webinar. So, this is actually the second webinar that we're doing around women's safety. Okay. And hello to the other people that are commenting as well. Perfect. First of all, I'm Anna. So, I hosted the last one. But I'll say it again. I'm Anna and I'm a psychotherapist and I focus on subconscious reprogramming, but also working a lot with trauma survivors from sexual abuse, sexual assault. So, one of the biggest reasons why I'm here is obviously women's safety, but it's also just talking about all the underlying beliefs, all the underlying things that happen, government regulations, and so much more. But most of all, we want to make sure that this is just a safe place, a safe chat for anyone to express what they're feeling. So if you want to mention anything, if you want to just say a quick hello or anything like that, feel free to write in the chat. If you're struggling with something, let us know. Obviously, I can help, especially when it comes to the more therapeutic approach, when it comes to the nervous system, or if you're in a really bad situation. But we also want to know more information of how we can help the community. We're developing more applications and different things to help the community and just make it safer overall. But again, let me know in the chat anything. If you're from a specific part of the world, let me know. I'm actually currently in Bolivia. I'm an Australian, but in Bolivia. So, where are you based? I'd love to see where anyone's from and just see where the community lies. But with that said, I think we've had a good 5 minutes of chatting. Let's kind of get straight into it. So, before we dive into some key findings, some different stories about women's safety, it's important to understand where all the data that I'm talking about is coming from. So, does anyone know the FRA? Okay, if anyone doesn't, it's the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights. It's a body that collects large scale evidence based data to help governments, organizations shape policies rooted in human rights. Plus, their research on violence against women is one of the most comprehensive in the world. So it's providing insight not just into what happens, but why it continues to happen and where the system falls short. Oh, hello from Zurich. Beautiful. I've been to Zurich, such a beautiful place. And you're in summer right now. I'm in winter. So I am so jealous. Okay, beautiful. So we're going to have this podcast in around two different parts. We're going to start off with just basic FRI findings and how we can create more solutions for that. Hello, Mary. And then the second part is going into something I didn't talk about in the last, I was about to say podcast, webinar, which is around women's safety when it comes to the workplace. It's amazing that us women are now allowed to work in the workplace, but there are still a lot of different things that we need to address. Okay, and hello from Journey, and you're also Anna. Hello. All right, let's get straight into it. And again, these findings, these FRA findings I'm speaking about, if there's anything you want to add to it, or if you have any more knowledge, any more recent news, drop it, put it in there. We want all of it. Okay, this is a big community. So, the first FRA finding that I really want to speak about is probably the most important. Sexual harassment is the norm. It's normal, it's not the exception. I think this is something that we all feel. Unfortunately, sexual harassment is something that we experience in our day to day lives. According to the FRA, 2 out of 3 women in the EU have experienced sexual harassment, most often in public or at work. Now, the part of this that is sad is because it is normal. I remember a few years ago, one of my friends, not friends with them anymore, saw me get very, very uncomfortable. Yes, it really is the norm. But they saw me get very, very uncomfortable when I had someone catcalling me in a very horrible way. And I said, "Oh, that made me very uncomfortable." And my male friend said, "Oh, if I was you, I'd be lathering up. I'd be loving it. So good." But the thing is that from that perspective, yes. But what I said to him is, what you don't know is that I've been experiencing this since I was 10 years old. Since I was 10 years old, I have had people trying to get me into their cars, catcalling me, telling me to take my pants off, my shirt off. And that's where it's harassment. That's where it's normal. This is a really, really big problem. But this is where one of our new apps, Glim, is coming in. So we're still in the development, but one of the biggest things that we want to do is we want to make the world more safe for women. Problems like this, it's the norm and it's common. One of the features that we have in it is our Safe Line feature. So it's a private space where you can talk about what happened without needing to downplay it, prove it, or how to prove it's not bad enough. It's about being heard and supported because no story is too small and no shame whatsoever. That's one of the biggest problems that we find, especially with this FRA report, is 2 out of 3 women experience sexual harassment, but how often do they downplay what happened? Because they're afraid of the shame. So, if you've ever walked away from a moment feeling unsure or unseen, you're not alone. But feel free to join our Telegram group and connect with others who get it as well. All right. So, let's kind of move on to our next finding. This one's also very, very, very important and it really, really hits home, especially with the work I do with women who have survived a lot of different forms of assaults or abuse. So, most survivors don't report it. The FRA found that 55% of women who have been sexually harassed, 55% of women who have been sexually harassed, yet for some reason only 4% report what's actually happened to the police. Now, this might be surprising for some, but not surprising for others, because a lot of the time, most reports aren't taken seriously. That's why only 4% report it or even go to report it. I asked one of my clients the other day if I could bring in her story, just to present to you guys because I know many people can relate and hopefully feel a little bit seen and heard by this experience. But one of my clients is a sexual abuse survivor of multiple different events. But the first one happened when she was in university. She was being stalked by a man. He broke into her room and unfortunately abused her. But when she brought this to the university and the authorities, it was downplayed. Where's your proof? So it didn't really happen. The same thing happened to her again and again and again on different first dates with different men. The instant that she brought it to the authorities, they said, "Where's your proof?" And again, wasn't real. And that's one of the biggest problems. And I guess one of the grey zones that are coming into this, hello, hello, is that according to the authorities, or according to many government reports, it has to be physical evidence. If it's not physical, it's not real. And this is why a lot of women don't report. Even if they could take it further or they could actually, get something out of it, they could put someone in prison for what they did. Unfortunately, because of previous reports, it's not taken seriously. And so that's very, very big. Out of 55% of women, only 4% report it. But how many of these incidents actually get recognized? We don't know. But with Glim, as I was talking to you before, the app that we're developing, this is why we have created the authority report tool. So it's being designed with women like my client, or like many of you women, or or our women friends that have experienced this. It walks you through how to document, how to report, or even just reflect on your terms. Whether you want to take legal steps or just be seen, it at least gives you a sense of control. And this is really important. Okay, beautiful. Oh, feeling I'm gonna go get some water. But just to add to that point, this is exactly why we believe it's time to break silence, but safely. If you've ever felt like the system let you down, please share your story with us. We want you to feel heard, we want you to feel seen. So feel free to comment report or glim or something like that, and we'll send you a resource pack that can help. Alrighty, so let's go into the next FRA finding. This one, I think it's unfortunately just something that is again the norm, but it's harassment from people we know. So the FRA reports that most violence and harassment is carried out by former partners or current partners. It comes from people we know, exes, family, and people we've trusted. Now, the part that is especially dangerous with this, and I work with this a lot, is that what we grow up in becomes our normal. And what I mean by that is it's normal for our nervous system. So I'm going to go into a little bit of nervous system regulation. I'm assuming we know what the nervous system is, but it's pretty much just the connection between your brain and your body. But a lot of the time, it's really, really hard to understand what is harassment, what is abuse, what is someone stepping a boundary when we've lived with it our whole lives. The nervous system's well, the nervous system's sole responsibility is to keep you in what is normal, and what is normal is safe. A lot of people, what was normal was growing up in very passive aggressive households, lots of verbal abuse, no physical, a lot of manipulation. When they talk to other family members or friends, they tend to be in the same environment, so it's normalized. Don't take it so too seriously, you're too much. I've worked with many clients who have had a very bad background in manipulation or abuse and find themselves in the exact same relationships they were in what they grew up in. This is because the nervous system doesn't necessarily want to keep you what's safe, but in what feels normal. Mm. Oh, yes, Caroline, what did you say? Even reporting it, it feels like it's pointless. It's difficult to change things depending on the country. Definitely. I think that's one of the hardest areas to go into is it does change depending on the country. Now, I'll talk about later, but there are a few countries that have been making big, big changes. But unfortunately, there are many countries where women don't even have rights to vote, to have a car, or a lot of different things. Oftentimes, reporting it comes back with even more shame. So, yeah, of course, feels pointless, it's difficult. But being here, speaking about it, continuing to put the shadow on the light is the best thing we can do to create change. Okay, so going back to harassment from people we know, I'm going to recap again that the nervous system isn't here to keep you safe, it's to keep you into what's normal and what you know. I had one of my clients who was from a third world country, moved to a first world country, and she received a lot of manipulation, a lot of verbal abuse her whole life, again, moving from partner to partner, finding herself in the same situation. Unfortunately, the nervous system, again, it's trying to find what's normal. What's normal is what's safe. So it will move to you. It will see red flags and see it as green. This is why it's really, really important to have someone to talk to outside of your family and sometimes outside of your friendship group. We tend to stay in communities that normalize what we're in, and that can be very, very hard. And just like Caroline said before, especially when it's in cultures in different countries. So that's why Safeline, again, the feature in Glim that we have is super, super important because it's more than just a chat feature. It's a safe space to name what is happening before it escalates or just simply unpack what already has happened. Again, we don't always have that safe place. We don't always have the ability to pay for therapy or someone else. But having this feature just allows you to feel heard, unpack what's happening, and have someone kind of shine a mirror, a reflection of what's actually going on. So, but also, if you are second guessing yourself whether something counts as abuse or if something happens and you're feeling unsure about it, this space is for you. You can join our Telegram group and just be a part of a community that listens without judgment. We're always welcoming people. We want to make sure that we are creating the safest place for you. Okay. All right, let's go into that one. And again, if you have any questions, shoot away. Okay, so we're going on to our last FRA finding. Now, there's a lot, but right now, what I want to do is I want to pinpoint the most important ones and hopefully allow people to feel heard and just allow to put a few more solutions. Okay. Also, you might find a surprise cat come through. I've recently adopted a street cat, and she's a bit playful, so you might get a little snippet of her. Alrighty. So going into the last one, and this one is one that specifically hits home for me because this is something that I've specifically been through, and this is something that I really struggled to talk about for I'd say about 6 years. So it was very very hard for me. So nothing to do with the therapy, but more to do with my experience, but something a lot of women have experienced. And so this is the fourth biggest finding with the FRA. Stalking isn't just creepy; it's dangerous. So 1 in 5 women, 1 in 5 women. That's how many experience stalking. And I don't mean like, the kind you make a little joke about online. I mean the kind that changes your life. When I was 19 years old, I experienced stalking very, very bad. There was a man I found out later after the police report who lived in my area, and I used to live in what we call a Queenslander. That's a little house in my state called Queensland. It's on stilts above the ground to keep it cool. But I used to hear breathing outside my window, and it turns out he used to sleep underneath where I was every day. Luckily, I brought it to the police. They took it seriously. Again, they don't always take it seriously. But the problem was my work didn't take it seriously. I had a curfew to have to go home at 12 o'clock at night because I worked at a bar. But many people in my workplace pushed that because they wanted help. They didn't believe it was necessarily true. This is the what's the word for this? This is how bad it gets when it comes to stalking. It's not very taken seriously, and sometimes it can have very, very bad results. Like in the last week, I don't know if anyone here is from the UK, but I saw in the news this morning a woman from the UK named Toby Jane Cabri, a lawyer, spent years being stalked by a man who threatened her family. He impersonated her online and ignored multiple legal warnings and bail conditions. I completely get you, but unfortunately, what is wrong with these men? It's trauma, generational trauma, societal, cultural things. But these are things that we're changing, things that we're healing, and things that we're putting our foot down to. Okay, but Toby Jane Cabri. So she had a man who was stalking her, threatened her family, impersonated her online, and ignored multiple legal warnings and bail conditions as well. The thing is what started as just unsettling messages became terrifying very quickly. Despite making reports to police, again, as we are talking about in one of the last FRA findings, the police responses were slow and inadequate. The result of this, now I'm lucky that the police took action for mine, but the result for this lady is now she lives with severe PTSD and in constant fear. This story is a chilling reminder that stalking isn't just creepy, it's dangerous. And for too many women, it's not taken seriously until something escalates. So the solution that we've been speaking about with this, with Glim, has been amazing, and it's tech tools like location sharing, and safe check-ins. Now, what's different about this is that it is instant. It is vital. We offer a system that doesn't fail, but it's fast, it's collective, it provides protection, and it's built by women for women. It allows to send messages super, super fast to loved ones or even women in your local area. And this allows us to support each other when institutions that are meant to protect us fail. But if you've ever had some sort of gut twisting anxiety of being followed or being watched, obviously there's our Telegram. But also, I would love for anyone to subscribe to our channel to stay informed because we're constantly doing updates. We're constantly trying to make sure that we can create more of a safe space for women. And if you have any ideas of what could make you feel more safer, if anything online could make you feel safer, please let us know. You can comment here, but you can go on to our YouTube channel or or any different forms of our social media and comment there. Okay, so we're now going to move into the second part. We've gone into the first part, which is around the FRA findings in Europe. But now we're going to go on to the second part. And this is a part that's really, really important. I didn't address it at all in the last webinar, which is why we're kind of going into it now. And it's women in employment. So amazing. Women in employment. We now have so many women here in employment. We have a lot of women in really high ranking positions. But unfortunately, it is still very, very hard. And there are still social norms that are being pressured onto women. Because we often talk about safety in public or at home, but what about at work? A place where so many spend most of their days, but they're often silently navigating it. So if this is something that you've experienced, please let us know. If there's something that's happened that you're unsure about, please write it down. We want to hear you, but we also want to find more ways to help you. But most of all, just have a community where you can feel safe. A lot of the times, the outside world, especially the workplace, your nervous system is in high alert at all times. If we can just create more of a space where people can just allow to relax a little bit more, then it's better. Okay, so what I'm going to start talking about is a few different things. Things that seem small, but they build up over time. Microaggressions, interruptions, being spoken over, inappropriate jokes. And then there's more, the pressure to be agreeable, accommodating, or not too emotional. And one thing that's really important that I see a lot is the burnout that comes. And I'm not talking about the burnout that comes from the workload. I'm saying the burnout that comes from constantly masking. When you're on high alert all the time, you're draining your energy so much. So a lot of the time, burnout isn't because of the workload. It's because you're constantly having to put up this front of protection to defend yourself as well. Okay, so let's kind of go into some quick examples of this. And if this is something you've been through, let me know because I think I've been through most of them myself. But these are small little examples, but that make a really, really big difference to your life and make you feel unsafe just in the normal workplace. So the first one I think is the most common one. It was the it was just a joke defense. For example, a male colleague makes a sexual or uncomfortable comment in a meeting, and then when you address it, he just says, "Come on, don't take it like that. Learn to take a joke." This is really common. But what does this unconsciously mean? This means that he's shifting the responsibility from himself, the one who caused the discomfort, to you for reacting to it. It reinforces the idea that women's boundaries are optional and that calling out harm makes you the problem. Again, this is a norm and this is something that a lot of us have experienced. Okay, let's go into another one. You're overthinking it. Oh, this one hits me so deep. You're overthinking it. So, for example, you raise a concern about a client's inappropriate behavior to someone, some sort of superior, and he says, "Oh, he's just being friendly. He's just being nice." You're overthinking and you're reading into it too much. Okay, so what's happening here? Pretty much you're being gaslit. But the thing is, instead of addressing the boundary violation, the concern is flipped into you being oversensitive. The problem in our society is if it's not physical, as I said before, then it's not real. This discourages women to trust their own gut in speaking up in the future. And trusting your gut is a very big thing because your gut is able to tell you what is actually a threat and what isn't. But when we're having repetition of different words saying we're too much, we need to stay small or just be nice, we tend to silence the gut and believe the outer person's perspective, which tends to put us in more bad situations because we get very indecisive. A big problem I see a lot of my clients is indecisiveness. And that's not necessarily because there's something wrong with them, but in the situations that they put in when they've been forced to believe the outside perspective instead of their own. Again, if this is something you struggle with and you want some nervous system regulation help with that, I'm more than happy to help. Okay. But we've got some more. So the next most common one in the workplace is the emotional double standard. So, this is something that has been changing a lot, and I'm really happy to see this change, but it's still a very, very big problem. The example of this is a man gets assertive in a meeting, He gets assertive, he raises his voice, he's seen as confident. A woman does the same. Ooh, she's labeled as aggressive, too much, or emotional. What does this mean? So this creates a no-win situation. If you're too soft, you're dismissed. If you're strong, you're punished. So women often end up shrinking to maintain the peace at the cost of their authenticity. This is something that I work a lot with clients in changing and just making little comments, little things to assert themselves. But we'll go into that soon. All right, now I've got, I think, two more examples. Okay, this one is a bit of a touchy one because it can be nice, but there is also a lot of underlying microaggression into it, and that's backhanded compliments. So, for example, "Wow, you're so articulate for a young woman." "Oh, wow, you're actually really smart for a lawyer." So, these are comments that do seem flattering, and there is some flattery truth to it, but it also carries a condescending bias, which reinforces the stereotypes, make you feel like you constantly have to prove yourself to belong. Again, putting your nervous system in high alert. All right, let me read what you said here, Caroline. Okay, how can women become more related to dominant work positions and not only family roles? That's a really, 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 really good question. I think it really does depend on your country because unfortunately, like a lot of countries still don't require that. But I'm gonna take a sip and think of that for a second. I think this is a really difficult question because the family role is really, really important, and the role of the mother is very, very important. The role of the father is very, very important as well. I think the question isn't more of like, how can women, be more dominant into that workplace position, but it's like, how do I run a family and work and my husband work at the same time? It's a really, really, really difficult area to go into. But I think the best thing to do it is to find as much support as you can. I think a lot of the time as women, we have this hyper independence. We have women who unfortunately stay small because of the way society has taught them to be small. If you stay pretty and be nice, you're going to be loved more. And then we go the opposite direction of being hyper independent. This is something I experience. I need to be the dad. I need to be the man my dad never was. And when we go into these hyper independent roles, we tend to not be able to ask for support. Asking support can seem weak because I have to prove myself. So, how can a woman be more related to dominant work positions? To be honest, finding a community of support, even if you get into that workplace position, I see a lot. And again, this is something I do in my work. I work with a lot of women who are struggling with not just abuse, but trying to bring themselves up in the world. They tend to isolate themselves. So the best way, how can you bring yourself up into any way into a work or navigate family roles? Get support from the people around you. Join groups like this. Get more insight, get more knowledge. It's a very hard question to answer, but that would be the best thing I could say is try and get more support from the people around you because then you can get more support in your work role, you can get more support in your family life as well. Okay. But with that said, I'm going to go into the next one. This one is a very, very big one, but it is the fear of being too much. So, being a psychotherapist, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of clients. I think, I was going to say culturally, but no, societally, because we are in a society now worldwide. There is this big swing of not feeling enough to feeling too much. And sometimes we can feel both at the same time, and it's really, really heavy. And where do we find that spot in the middle where we're not feeling too much, like too emotional, overwhelmed, and we go swinging back to not feeling enough, feeling like we can't do anything right? Where do we find that middle point? This is something not just women feel, this is men and women. But with more women, the fear of being too much, I find, is more severe. Women, we produce estrogen, men produce testosterone. So for men, everything to do with like physicality. Again, they're more physically strong, biologically, a lot of different things, but they're more physical with everything. Sexually, a lot of different things. With women, we produce estrogen, so we're more internal, we're more emotional. It's a part of the way that we show up. It's a part of our bodies. It's part of our hormones. We're better at problem solving. We're naturally better at a lot of different things. But because we also live in, I guess, a bit more of a male dominated world where we're trying to make ourselves up, be having emotions is really, really difficult. We often feel too much, but hey, we produce estrogen. That's a part of us. Hello from Italy. Beautiful. I'm in Bolivia here. So hello. But yes, as women, we produce estrogen. We're naturally more attuned to be sensitive, to be emotional. We're better at processing in that way, but oftentimes we're punished for that as well. So if you're ever feeling that you're too much or anything like that, just know like, hey, don't get mad at what you are and what your body does. You're amazing at processing. But how does this affect the work-life balance? A lot of women hesitate to give honest feedback because they don't want to be labeled as dramatic, difficult, or emotional. So what does this mean? We're self-silencing out of survival. Many women in male-dominated workplaces internalize the belief that showing emotion equals weakness. Again, we can get into that hyper-independence role. But burnout often, again, isn't because of the job, it's because you're pretending to be okay all the time. So it's not to say we need to have a massive breakdown or anything like that in the workplace, but be okay with showing emotion. Be okay with being assertive in your emotions as well. You're not too much. You're a woman, that's part of who you are. Even to continue on this, I was watching the news a few days ago and I saw a report by the French court. And before I was saying countries that are doing really, really well in the workplace, France is one of them. It has been doing really, really well with the laws. In our last webinar, I actually spoke a little bit about that. So if you want to understand a little bit more about specific laws in countries, the good things, the grey zones, the red zones, feel free to go back. It's on our channel to watch that. But this month, a French court convicted three former executives from the video game company Ubisoft. I don't know if anyone knows Ubisoft. I didn't know before this, but it's a video game company. And after years of long investigations into toxic workplace cultures, employees described being regularly humi, hum, humiliated. My gosh, I can't speak. I think you get it. Humiliate. Humiliated. Close enough, right? Okay, back to the serious part, but some were even forced to do handstands in front of colleagues. They were forced to do a lot of different things and a lot of physically weird, twisted things. And while others were just simply subjected to degrading jokes and sexual comments. So this wasn't just about bad behavior, it was about leadership turning a blind eye, normalizing abuse, and punishing those who spoke up. This is serious. So it's good that France has been taking action on this, but previously there were some really, really big problems. And these women that were experiencing this, it was for years. But there's a powerful reminder that these kinds of experiences women are still facing, being talked over, ridiculed, or made to feel too sensitive. These aren't isolated incidents, but they're a part of a bigger cultural problem that still exists even in some of the world's most powerful companies. Hmm. Okay. What do you think about the case of Mm, I've heard of that case, but I don't know too much about it, to be honest. To make a comment on it, I would probably need to read up on it. But I since you said that, I will probably go take a look at it. But if you wanna leave any more information about that to notify different viewers, I really, really welcome that. That's what this space is for. Mhm. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely horrible that those things happen. Hmm. Wow. Okay, yeah, for 20 years. Yes, yes, and, there have been many cases like this as well. There was one that happened, where I'm from in Australia. There was a movie that was made about one with a woman in Germany by her father. There's absolutely horrible cases. The good thing now, at least specifically in France, is that they've actually been taking some really, really, really big steps. Like if anyone was here at the start, you heard me tell my story about catcalling and people making like sexual comments to me in public since I was 10. In France, that's now illegal. People can be fined on the spot for that, which is really, really good. But it's unfortunate that these things happen. But again, we're here. We're creating the change. We're talking about this. The more awareness, the better. Okay. All right. So, kind of let's kind of switch this into more solutions. But first of all, I do have a little bit of a reflection question for everyone. Have you ever felt like you've left working and you were carrying a weight no one else could see? Because this is something that we often carry. And if this is something that you feel, it's something that you feel in your stomach, a deep pit, I welcome you to join our Telegram group where you can be supported by more like-minded women. But with that said, how do we begin to shift this? So when it is in the workplace, so we're going to go back to specifically to the workplace, we need to name what's happening because these subtle patterns, dismissal, minimalization, emotional emotional policing, part of a large culture that teaches women that it's safer to stay small. One of the biggest things that I remember not just hearing, but I saw a lot is feeling like I'm more lovable when I'm small, feeling like I'm more lovable when I stay quiet, feeling like I'm more lovable when I sit right, when I be that good girl. And it's really, really hard because this is still a cultural norm that is forced upon women. And so for us, even if we want to be more confident, if we want to be more assertive, it can be really, really hard when culturally we're told to do the opposite. But change starts when we stop internalizing those messages. And we just want to practice, but first practice starting to notice your own boundaries when you're at work, even when you're in a social situation. When does your body tense up? Again, your nervous system is going to know before your mind. When does your body tense up? When does your voice go quiet? When do you start editing yourself, changing yourself to avoid making others uncomfortable? This is something that we've all experienced. Okay, you just want to start to notice that. Then you want to begin using clear and calm language. Name what you actually need, but in really small statements. Something like, "Hey, I understand you're probably making a joke, but that made me really uncomfortable." Or, "What you just said is important, but I'd like to finish my point." They feel small, but they're powerful. One of the biggest things I work with a lot of different women when it comes to asserting themselves is they do get emotional, and that's okay. But they word vomit. When this happened, this is, and then this happened, this and this and this. They overwhelm themselves, and for that, they overwhelm the people around them. And then they get gaslit. But you want to start just by practicing with really small but powerful statements. Again, I get it was a joke, but that made me uncomfortable. What you're saying is important, but I'd actually like to finish my point. This creates micro corrections in environments that we've been taught to shrink in. And when one woman sets a boundary, it gives permissions for others to do the same. Because healing doesn't have to start with confrontation, but sometimes it just starts with just being honest and being honest with not pretending you're okay when you're not, with choosing not to laugh it off when it actually really, really hurt, because that's being true to yourself. And these are acts of resilience, and over time, they do reshape the culture around us. We've seen this happen a lot in different cases, even with the one we're talking about before in the gaming company. The women over there, oh my gosh, if you read the story, it's incredible the changes that they made. But if emotional safety is something that's really important to you or something that you're not feeling, again, please join our Telegram group where we can give you some building tools for inner safety and strength. But as well, comment Glim or comment report, and we're happy to send you some resources as well to help with that. Okay. So I've got a few more points to speak on before going into this, and I'm really happy because I'm on time with this. I had it all planned out, so that's really good. The next one is it's really really important, but it's overlooked, and it's that financial power does equal safety. For many women, the ability to leave unsafe homes or jobs isn't necessarily about like courage or wanting to leave. It's about whether they can afford to. Great in most countries now, women can have jobs, they can have, their own finances and everything like that. But there is a big shift in women often feel finances are scary. One thing I see a lot is, you see men going to play golf and talking about stocks. That's a very, very uncommon thing for women. Financial dependence is one of the biggest reasons why women stay in abusive relationships. Many women weren't taught to negotiate, taught about investments, taught about savings, taught about entrepreneurship skills. So the emotional narratives around money can often have a lot of shame, guilt, fear of ambition. Again, going back to the point of before, is that we live in a large culture that teaches women that to be small is to stay safe. So encouraging women to open savings accounts, to have investments, to learn about that is not very cultural yet. It is changing, but we need more. An example of this was last year I was living in Brazil, and I remember talking to this beautiful woman, but she said something that really it impacted me, and I've got it written here. And she said, "I didn't leave sooner because I couldn't afford to be on my own. I had to work on 4 side hustles and save physical cash for 2 years." That sentence for me was everything because it shows money just isn't a number, it is freedom, and especially for women. So, in a reflection prompt, I wrote here that I'm going to just copy and paste and put it into here because I think it's really important. I'm just popping it into the chat now. Is what did you learn about money growing up? Were you encouraged to manage it or was it seen as someone else's role? If the idea of money, of checking your bank account is something that scares you, work on just little steps to encourage yourself and start to take control back of your life and of your money. Because the path to financial freedom often starts with unlearning the idea of what money is. Is it something that we should feel guilty about, afraid of manage? And the thing is, learning that's actually really easy. Something I say to my clients all the time. I say, learning's easy. Learning's dirt easy. Dirt easy is a Australian slang. I hope you understand it though. Very easy. But what's really, really hard is unlearning. Unlearning the ways you see yourself, unlearning the ways you talk to yourself, unlearning the ways that you see life, unlearning the ways that life has taught you to be small. For many generations, women were excluded from conversations around money or taught to leave it to their partner, father, or that ambition was unattractive. But reclaiming your financial power is not just about wealth, it's about giving yourself options. It's about the ability to say no or work up to say no to toxic work environments, to leave unsafe relationships, or to invest your own dreams. If you want to understand money before more and get better into it, just start with one small thing. Just track your income, your spending, ask for a raise, and ask for a raise even if you're worried about the no. Open a savings account or take action into online courses. There's so many online courses and resources that are free talking about money, talking about investments, a lot of things, some specifically for women as well. Because these are not just financial decisions, they're active empowerments. Because over time, money becomes less about fear and more about choice. And again, as we said, money equals freedom a lot of the time. So when women support each other in these spaces, sharing tips, tools, encouragement, we all rise. So if you have any encouragement with money or anything like that, taking control, write it in the chat or anything like that. Again, we do have a Telegram, so please join if you have some useful tips for other women or if you need support as well. Okay, awesome. So, is there any questions that people have anything about that, anything about money, any fears? Again, I welcome it all. All right. Oh, and also as well, since we are starting this YouTube channel, feel free to subscribe because we're going to be adding more details, more value, talking about different topics as well, just to give more information and more support out there. But with this, I think I'm going into my last point for today. Okay, yes, perfect. And that is reclaiming confidence after harm. In the last webinar, I'm so surprised I didn't talk about this because I think this is the thing we struggle with the most. We can have something really, really horrible happen, and that can be years ago, but somehow it always chases us. How can we reclaim that confidence after a part of our mind is trapped in a horrible experience? Words that people told us, even if it was years ago. Because when you've spent years being dismissed, ignored, or talked over, it's hard to feel like your voice belongs in a meeting or your ideas deserve space. Very difficult. I think this is something that we all experience. But one of the most uncommon things, and again, even in the workplace, like we're talking before, is many women minimize themselves at work due to trauma responses, fawning, freeze, or fear of conflict. Now, I spoke a bit on the nervous system before, but one tool that is really, really important to use is nervous system regulation. So, if people know what the subconscious is, we have the conscious mind and we have the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is controls around 90% of our brain. It's kind of running in the background, but it has no idea the difference between time or space. It exists only in here. Only our conscious mind has an understanding of time and space. Why I bring this here and to talk about it is because it doesn't understand time and space, it can get trapped in specific moments. An example I had with a previous client is she would hear loud noises and she would go into freeze response. She would freeze, shut down, and for about a day, she would feel numb, but then too much, overwhelmed at the same time. The reason why this happened is because when she was a child and she had a very abusive father, unfortunately, he used to come home on a motorbike. The motorbike always triggered her that abuse was going to happen. So in the future, she got trapped in this part of this memory that loud noise equals abuse. This is why the subject is really, really important, reclaiming confidence after harm. Because the thing is that we can be in the future, we can know that that's in the past, we can say, hey, that's unreasonable. We can know everything's safe, but does our nervous system know it's safe? We can't talk about empowerment without talking about healing. But rebuilding confidence is a process of unlearning the invisibility and taking small steps. So if you want any resources to help with the nervous system, again, please send us a message. If there's anything particular, you can comment on here, but you can also comment on any other platform as well. Okay, Claudia, what did you say? Yeah, yeah, very, very good question. So I'm going to read this out loud. How can I stop an act of psychological attack against me if it comes from people I trust close to me? And so I would need a little bit more information about psychological attack. And so is it a psychological attack where someone's being passive aggressive, or is it your nervous system taking it as a psychological attack when really they're just being, I don't know, offering something or something like that? Either way, it's hard. Passive aggressive. Okay. So how can I stop the act of a passive aggressive psychological attack against me if it comes from the people I trust close to me? This is a really hard one. Obviously, it really just does depend on what they're saying. But first, to be able to stop it, the best way is to remove those people from your life, to be honest. But most of the time, these people are in our family, which is the part that is very, very difficult. The first thing that you need to do is just really understand your emotional state when it happens. I would assume that you're going into fight or flight or shut down. It's maybe just a passive aggressive comment, but it's probably triggering a lot of different things in the past. And that makes your nervous system go into this override and have a really negative reaction to yourself. The first thing you need to start to do is just track when this happens. How many times is it happening? What is it that they're saying that is making me trigger or react? Because they can be passive aggressive and you can be assertive and everything's fine, but that's probably not the case. Because something inside of you is making you freeze, it's making you want to run, or it's making you want to fight intensely. To be able to the assertiveness, I think, is the easy part, being able to, process what you're feeling is the first step. So what I recommend is tracking it. How many times is that happening? Is there a specific word that's happening? And feel into your body. Where in your body are you feeling it? And then we can go into the 5 values. Now this is really, really important. We have 5 values, 5 core beliefs we need to feel with everyone in our life. If you're having problems, in your relationship, with your husband, with your family, with people at work, you need to understand why you're feeling hurt. Hurt. 'Cause there's 5 things that we need to feel. We need to feel safe, we need to feel loved, we need to feel seen, we need to feel heard, and we need to feel valued and appreciated. So when something's happening, that's putting you in a very, uncomfortable state. They can be being passive aggressive, they can be anything, but you need to see which one of these things is feeling unfulfilled. Am I feeling unsafe? Why am I feeling unsafe? Am I feeling unheard? Am I feeling unseen? Am I feeling unappreciated? And that's when you need to address that. Hey, I know what you said was a joke, but it made me feel really unappreciated because I actually have done this and this and this. Hey, you said this, but what do you mean by this specific word? Try to approach it with curiosity because when you approach it with curiosity, the person can't attack you again. Sounds a bit weird, but again, when we approach it with curiosity and the person sees that it's from curiosity, it's very, very hard for them to be the victim in that situation. Oftentimes, when people are passive aggressive or attackful or anything like that, and you attack back, that gives them a reason to be the victim. Approach with curiosity, question them as well. So there's a lot of different things there, but I really hope that helped. But again, I welcome any other questions. And please, I recommend joining our Telegram chat so you can really talk deeper as well. Okay, so I'm going to kind of wrap up with a bit of a conclusion. And I guess this is just going to be talking about reclaiming confidence. Mm. All right, I will address that question in a moment. Oh, but reclaiming confidence after harm, it isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you to be small. When we experience repeated dismissal or emotional silencing, our nervous system learns to associate visibility with danger. So, standing up, speaking out, or even just expressing an idea can feel super, super, super unsafe, even when logically we know we're okay. So, that's why nervous system regulation matters. It helps us feel safe enough just to show up. Now, there are many resources that you can use to do that. You can read books or anything. Again, I highly recommend booking a call with a nervous system regulation therapist if you can as well. They can really help you. But even just starting with small acts of self expression, so sending that honest message, asking a question in a meeting, saying no when something doesn't sit right, these steps build self trust. Even journaling is a really, really big thing. Journaling, you'll see recommend on a lot of self help things, but the science behind it is that when we're ruminating our thoughts, we're in here, it's not physical, it's not real in some ways. But when we're out here, it's physical and we're actually able to work through it and it's a form of processing. Get a mentor, or you can always just simply share your voice in a safe community. All these things rewrite that internal story that says, I have nothing to offer. You always have something to offer. And you don't need to be louder. You just need to stop shrinking yourself. And I think that's such an important thing. We think we need to be more. It's not about being more, it's about unlearning what we're not. Healing your confidence is about perfection, it's about consistency and just having self compassion along the way. I think we often beat ourselves up a lot, but just having self compassion is super, super important. Okay, so I'm just going to go through and read these questions. So we'll be finishing up soon. So if you have any questions, smash them in there. Like, we want to hear them. Okay, but you said 2 out of 3 women have experienced harassment. Do you think most men do that or a small percent? Do you think it happens more in public or in other contexts? Um, I mean, statistically, yes, most men. Uh, are the ones that are doing the sexual harassment, but it definitely can happen from women as well. Do you think it happens more in public or in other contexts? Sexual harassment isn't necessarily it's something that happens in public, but it happens from the unseen eye. One good thing is that sexual harassment, in most countries, it is seen as a bad thing. But these days, it's no longer happening in the public eye, it's happening away from it. And that's why it's really, really hard to prove, it's really, really hard to talk about, and a lot of different things. But you said in other contexts, I would invite you to tell me more about the context. And I want to read this last part again. Do you think most men do that or a small percent? Yes, it would definitely be most men. Unfortunately, men themselves suffer severe sexual harassment as well, but mostly from other men as well. That is a statistic. I don't know the exact percentage, but yes. Mhm. Mm, unfortunately, from Islamic countries. Yes. Okay. And Claudia said, all the violence in my city comes from immigrants. What's the solution? Yes, that's a really, really tough thing because unfortunately, when people immigrate, they still have the same belief in their current country. The biggest thing I think would help a lot is with when the immigrants come in, that the government needs to put them in some sort of specific education program on social norms, on cultural norms as well. There was actually a report I was reading about the other day about a woman in, I think it was Scotland, but an immigrant from another country, unfortunately, abused her, sexually abused her very, very badly. And so, but because it was under this immigration law, it was a grey zone, so he got put on patrol and it happened again. Unfortunately, that is a very, very big thing that's coming into it. But what we need to kind of look at more is the solution is okay, how can we promote the governments? How can we promote the communities for education? A lot of the times, the reason why women have been severely abused or a lot of bad things have happened is because it is a cultural and societal norm. The more we grow, the more information we learn, the more we understand that that's not okay. The internet is a very, very powerful thing. It's done so many amazing things, give you so much access to knowledge. It's also created lots of anxiety and comparison as well. But the more technology is growing, the more information is growing, the more we have as a society. You look at racism in the past, now that we have more of an online world and a lot of different things, racism is no longer acceptable in some countries. Still happens though, unfortunately. But it is the same when it comes to violence in cities, again, from other immigrants. The thing is that these people are coming in with the mindset, the education, and the cultural norms that they've always had and expected. We need to help with the education that this isn't okay, but also show the benefits that they can have from this. That is hard though. Do you have any services that can help in that? I don't have any specific services, but I know our website. It'll be below. You can check it. You can check it out, and we have a lot of different resources and links. But again, we're always collecting more information of ways that we can help and ways that we can support. So we'll look into that more. So if you want to subscribe to one of our socials, we'll be able to help on that in the future. Have more services in that area. Okay. Well, is there any more questions before we leave it there? I welcome it and everything. But, I do wanna thank everyone for showing up. We had to think around, like, up to 12 to 13 people in this, so I really thank you for being here, but thank you for showing up for yourself. Thank you for coming here and supporting us as well. We've just been starting this for the last few months, but we really just wanna create more safety, for women, but also create more communities for safety. There are so many things that we're trying to approve, so many things that we're trying to learn, so the more people that can help support us, but also give us information, give us resources, or anything that's happened, that helps us a lot. So yes, I think we've got no more questions there. So I guess we'll leave it there. But again, thank you for being here, coming to show us support. We're really trying to build this. But again, thank yourself for showing up for yourself and wanting to get more in education and support. Okay. Well, if that's it, I'll leave it there. Thank you.